In the small Essex town of Aveley, in the quiet midnight of 1956, a boy awoke to something entirely unearthly. The hour was somewhere between 12:15 and 12:30. The streets were silent. The world at that hour should have been still. In his later years, Mr. Venables, who was the boy of this tale, describes what he could see. And in the far corner of his bedroom ceiling, an orangey-yellow light was flashing, flickering in a way that no domestic source would explain. Curious, and perhaps more brave than he realized, he slipped from his bed and approached the window. Outside, less than 100 yards away, there it was. A dark form, massive and silent, haloed in impossible colours. Around it spun lights, deep yellow-orange and vivid spectrums of reds and greens and blues, rotating with mechanical precision. On its summit, a large beacon-like light revolved, flashing with the slow, authoritative rhythm of a police car's lamp. Beneath it, another tier of lights spun in the opposite direction, creating a hypnotic counter-motion, as if the object itself was a theatre stage upon which something strange was being projected. Through horizontally oval windows, set like a line of luminous eyes, bright yellow-white light spilled into the night, and inside, the silhouettes of figures. They moved in a slow, deliberate manner, their outlines blurred against the glow. Mr. Venables would later liken them to men in frogmen's suits, smooth-headed, and their bodies proportionate, each seemingly engaged in an important task. One, he thought, held some kind of instrument, though at this distance the nature of the tool was impossible to discern. There were at least 3 or 4 of them, drifting between panels and walking with an almost casual gait, as if this midnight landing was nothing extraordinary to them at all. But the craft was more than lights and windows. Around its lower edge, flames, orange and yellow, seemed to ripple and swirl in a tight circular band. Where this fiery ring broke at the front, there emerged a different kind of flame, a fierce blue like the jets of a gas fire, projected downwards towards the earth. The boy stared, transfixed, trying to decide what it was he was looking at. Hemispherical? A domed craft with a vast rim. The precise form was lost in the dazzle of its colours and the glare of its fire. And all the while there wasn't any sound at all, not a hum, not a whisper, nothing. He eased the window open, hoping for a better view, and the faint noise of the sash window being opened was enough, because in an instant the silent visitor sprang into the air with what he could only describe as a fantastic speed. There was no roar of engines, no fading afterglow, only this silver pencil line streaking skyward until it vanished among the stairs. This encounter lasted no more than 3 minutes, and the object was gone in seconds. But the night wasn't over yet. Some hours later, in another part of the same house, Mr. Venable's mother rose from bed and wandered into the living room, and she glanced out of the window and froze. Outside in the darkness, a red orb was approaching, slowly at first, and then gathering pace. It grew in size, swelling until it seemed almost right upon the house, a great glowing sphere that lit the night with an unnatural radiance. She was alarmed, and she called for her husband, but when they returned together to the window, it was gone. The garden, the street, and the sky were empty, as though it had never even been there. The events of this night would never be explained. No marks were found in the fields. No neighbours came forward. The sight of these frogmen at work within their glowing chamber and the red orb that followed remain locked in that frustrating category of phenomena that resist any tidy explanation. You have to wonder, was Aveley the scene of a simple observation exercise, curious visitors peering briefly into the life of an English household? Or was there some connection between the craft, its silent crew, and the later, more ominous approach of that red sphere? If it was a coincidence, it was one for which coincidence itself seems, well, an inadequate term, doesn't it? And with so many such cases, the truth, if there is any truth, has long since passed into the realm of the stairs, from which those visitors came. The way this report is framed, Mr. Venables himself assumed that the noise of the sash window startled the craft into departure, and that interpretation makes sense from a teenage witness who had just made a sound and immediately saw the object react. But in a lot of UFO narratives, witnesses attribute causality to things that might simply be coincidental. The second sighting, the red sphere seen by his mother later that same night, complicates matters. It wasn't described as a separate event in a different context, but rather as something intruding upon the same household within hours of the first, and if the red orb was connected, it suggests a continuity of activity that night, and in that light, the sash noise might not have triggered the departure at all. Instead, the craft might well have had its own schedule, or it was responding to the approach of the red sphere. There are parallels in other British reports from the 50s and 60s where multiple objects seemed to act in concert, a large structured craft, and then one or more glowing orbs behaving with a kind of purposeful intelligence. And interpreted this way, this Aveley case reads less like a boy frightened some aliens away with the squeak of a wooden window, and more like two aerial phenomena appearing in sequence, possibly interacting. Now, this structured craft that the boy saw wasn't a passive light in the sky, was it? It had windows, it had a crew, and there was internal activity. Its occupants, these so-called frogmen, appeared entirely at ease, actually, strolling and operating instruments and going about their apparent work, as though the hovering platform was a laboratory, maybe. But its behaviour was oddly vulnerable, wasn't it? It remained silent, as though cloaked in secrecy. It hovered close to the ground as if examining or extracting something from the environment, and then at the slightest disturbance, it seems to have vanished. This might suggest that the craft and its crew were perhaps under some constraint. Maybe the all-seeing eye of a supervisor was in play. Maybe the arrival of the red sphere, only a short time later, begins to resemble the appearance of a pursuer, something whose role was to check or intercept. Who knows? And this sort of idea implies a hierarchy, doesn't it? So if the frogmen's craft, with its dazzling array of coloured lights, might have been an operative unit carrying out some reconnaissance, and the red sphere, simpler in form but more aggressive in behaviour, you'll note, might have been some sort of a monitor. Perhaps this larger craft overstayed its welcome. Perhaps it risked being seen, or perhaps, like a submarine detected by an enemy patrol, it was forced into a hasty retreat when a superior or perhaps hostile presence drew near. In Aveley, the boy might not have witnessed a single event, but the faint trace of a larger, hidden system at work, let's say, machines of different types, each playing a part, one crude and purposeful, the other some sort of an enforcer or a pursuer, driving off and finally erasing the presence of the intruders in the ship. And what does this say about the forces beyond? In this one, for me, the mystery does not lay so much in what was seen, but what was implied here. That young boy actually stumbled upon an encounter between other forces beyond our knowledge, of course, forces whose business with one another might be far more complex and far more revealing than their brief and silent interactions with us. And just like the pencil-line streak of the departing craft in the story, the truth has also long vanished into the night sky. The YouTube show is only a part of the vault. Beyond the broadcast is the archive, and at eeriesvault.com you'll find our growing library of case files, first-hand accounts of the unexplained, written reports from people who lived through something strange. And we need yours. If you've carried a story for years, if you've never had the chance to put it into words, and this is where it belongs, Your report will stand alongside others, building a record that may one day help us see patterns that we cannot see alone. And it's easy. Go to eeriesvault.com, open the Case Files page, and hit the Submit a Case button. Fill in the details and send it on its way. Because strange events pass quickly into silence unless someone records them. Don't let your story vanish. Put it in the vault. From the depths of the vault, this is Eerie's Vault Live. Every Friday at 9 p.m. GMT, the lines are open. UFOs, aliens, ghosts, strange creatures, time slips, encounters you cannot explain. If you've seen something unusual, if something has haunted you, followed you, or simply left you wondering, then this is your place to tell it. Call in and share your story. You can watch the show live on YouTube or stream it directly at eeriesvault.com, and if you're too shy to call, then you can email ahead of the show at eeriesvault@gmail.com, and I will read your story out for you on air. That's Eerie's Vault Live, Friday nights, 9 p.m. GMT. Be part of it. For those of you who want to go deeper, there is the Eerie's Vault Patreon. Here you'll find the evidence, original newspaper clippings, forgotten publications, rare documents. You'll see the raw material behind the stories, and you'll gain access to exclusive videos, some filmed on location at the very places we discuss, and you'll be able to watch private follow-up videos to the cases already covered on the main channel. It's not just about watching here, it's about joining the search, and by supporting the vault, you help to keep the archive alive, help uncover more material, and help to bring these stories into the light. And if you've ever wondered what all these marks are on this map here, well, patrons get access to this interactive encounters map to peruse at their leisure. It gets updated regularly and will grow to be one of the most comprehensive encounters maps in the world. If you've ever wanted to be closer to the investigation, if you've ever wanted to see what lies behind the curtain, then Patreon is where it begins. And with numerous membership options, what are you waiting for? Head over to the vault.